Well, good! 2 seconds left. The Lakers take the lead.
Kennedy hits his third home run of the game. Oh, what a moment! An innocent field.
Welcome to the LA Hoops and Homers podcast, your home for all things Dodgers, Angels, Clippers, and Lakers. I'm your host, Derek. With me, as always, is your other host, Josh. We're ready to get into some Los Angeles sports. What are we talking about today?
You know, today, Derek, for episode 4, we're going to be mixing it up a little bit for all you viewers. The past 3 episodes, we've kind of had a topic and we just talked about it. But today, we're going to do our own little thing. So, as you know, the trade deadline is coming up in a couple of days. And we have the Dodgers and Angels, 2 teams going in completely different directions. The Dodgers right now have a run differential of plus 85, are the best team in baseball by far. The Angels actually just hit they're the second worst team in baseball. This past week, for one of the days, they actually had the worst winning percentage in baseball behind the Pirates. So you have a buyer and a seller. So today we're going to be having 3 guys that the Dodgers should trade for and 3 guys the Angels should trade. And this should be an exciting one, Derek.
Yeah, I'm excited. So first, let's talk a little bit about the trade deadline in this year in particular. Normally, we've got 8 playoff teams from each division. Is that right? Yeah, something like that. 10 playoff teams from each division. And so by this time in the season, there are some very clear losers in the season that are trading away their pieces. With this year's expanded playoffs, where 16 teams, over half the teams get in, pretty much everyone is within a couple games of a playoff spot besides the very bottom. So that makes it so that there's not that many coveted pieces on the market, and the price of some mediocre acquisitions might be higher than it would be normally, as we'd see.
Well, I was going to say, this could potentially, for a lot of teams, with this being the new playoff format, almost a blessing in disguise, because you're seeing a lot of teams now that could possibly contend. A majority of the league isn't going to be selling because, like you said, with 16 teams, those 16 teams that are in the playoff spots right now, there's a number of teams, I think it's 24 to 26 teams that are still in legit contention. And you have a team like the Pirates, the Angels, the Mariners, teams like the Pirates, Josh Bell maybe, but you don't really have many assets to trade off there.
Yeah.
Mariners, they're already well into their rebuild phase. They already have their prospects. You don't really have much trade off there. So this could actually, I think, in the long run, be a blessing in disguise for the Angels, just because if they play this properly, they have a lot of highly coveted veterans that you can get some top prospects for, or at least 3rd, 4th guys in the farm system to hopefully bolster your team in the long run.
And that has already begun a little bit. Angels have made one trade. They traded infielder Tommy LaStella, plays mostly second base, a little bit of first base, a little bit of third base, to the division rival Oakland Athletics, who now boast one of the craziest infields ever, with Olsen at first. You already had Marcus Semien at short, Matt Chapman at third. Now you plug in LaStella there. Those are some real big middle-of-the-order bats. That Oakland team, that is a good baseball team. That is a very good team. Get even stronger. So the Angels trade LaStella for one-time top prospect, Franklin Barreto. He hasn't really lived up to his potential. What do you see in Barreto, Josh?
I like this move for the Angels a lot. I was seeing online that a lot of Angel fans are questioning it, wanting to pick up more pitching. I mean, but Barreto's a guy, just 2 years ago, he was top 40 prospect, ahead of Matt Chapman, actually, in the A's farm system. And he really just hasn't had a chance. If you look at his numbers, he's had a total of 219 plate appearances across the last 4 years. And in those plate appearances, he's batted 180, had an on-base of 210, an OPS of 570. So not something you'd like to see someone get off to that kind of start, but a lot of his time has been split amongst the minors and then the bigs, and he hasn't really had a chance to have consistent playing time up there. In AAA, he's had some incredible hot streaks.
Yeah, he's raked at every level of the minors.
Oh, for sure. I remember reading last night in AAA, he boasted above a 400 average. I think it was in June or July. He went off like crazy. He's a guy that has speed. He's a very good defender. He's a plus defender compared to Listella. Obviously, his bat isn't there. But again, for the Angels, you don't really have much to lose with this move because Listella, I really don't believe he was going to be resigning next winter with them. So you're looking at 30 more games. Worst case, you get a guy that is going to be a bat on the bench or someone that fizzles out. Best case, you have a top 140 prospect that got quit on early by the Athletics. But the Athletics aren't really someone who's known to just give up on young talent like that.
Yeah, and a big thing is you trade away, a couple more weeks of Tommy La Stella for, I think, 4 more seasons of control of a young guy. So even if even if he doesn't pan out to his full potential, you could still get a nice player. Maybe giving him everyday reps will get him to become a good player. And La Stella is, he's a really nice player. And he was an all-star last year. But if we're being completely honest, he only played half the season last year before getting injured. Mm-hmm. So he played with the Cubs for a long time. He never really broke out there. So he's, do we know for sure that he can sustain this? No, but he's a nice player now. He's having a great even better this season this year than he was last year. So I think given the circumstances and the overall quality of player, I think Barreto is actually a pretty nice. Of course, you would like to see pitching, but for a couple of years of a only 24-year-old second baseman, I think that's a pretty nice trade.
I think the Angels' approach, as of now, they need to start focusing on just acquiring more talent instead of just trying to focus on a singular position like pitching. Obviously you do need pitching, but a move like this, you're just getting more talent in your system. Whether it pans out long term, I don't know. I will just say as a comment, the Athletics, they are first in the AL West right now. This is a more aggressive move. Typically, they aren't that aggressive, although I do remember in 2014 they picked up Jeff Samardzija. So that should be interesting to see, definitely come playoff time.
Yeah, they are a good team. Definitely the team to watch in the AL, with the Yankees having just snapped a 7-game losing streak. They're not looking too hot, so the Oakland might be the cream of the crop with the AL.
Yeah, and Houston's not firing either too hot. They've Speaking
of cream of the crop, let's move into some Dodger talk.
Of course.
We got
the elite of the elite.
A Dodger team that is currently, playing really, really well. Firing on almost all cylinders. The starting pitching's been great. The bullpen's been incredible. Lineup's been really solid as well. Honestly, this might be if any team doesn't need a acquisition at the deadline, it's really this team. There's not a whole lot to add. But, we can always talk about and dream of what can cement this team as the favorite. And I got 3 guys here for the Dodgers to consider acquiring. Josh has 3 guys for the Angels to consider selling. We're going to go back and forth, and we're going to see if we can take credit for getting some of these right. So I think I'll go first, just since we just talked about the Angels. We'll talk a little Dodgers. Dodgers starting pitching this year has been really solid. You got Clayton Kershaw, who's looking pretty much as good as ever. After that masterful 6-inning performance against the Giants, ERA goes down to 1.8, and he's just looking like the old Cy Young Kershaw. Walker Buehler's turning it up, but in the last 6 months, the Dodgers have traded or lost to free agency Hyun-Jin Ryu, Rich Hill, Kenta Maeda, and then they even got back David Price, who opted out for the season, and Alex Wood, who's only pitched a couple of innings before getting hurt. So the starting pitching is a little thin. So my first acquisition to look for is Lance Lynn of the Texas Rangers. An interesting, really old school, interesting player. He is he has the longest streak, and this might blow your mind because this blows my mind. Longest streak of throwing at least 100 pitches in a game at 32 consecutive starts.
When
to
was
put that
this
in perspective, the next best is 7 consecutive starts.
Is this the current streak going on right now?
This is a current active streak. He's
Oh
thrown
my
32
god.
games in a row, at least 100 pitches. Next best is Eduardo Rodriguez of the Red Sox with 7. And then after that, it's Bauer with 2.
You don't see
So
that now often.
he pitches the whole game. He only throws fastballs, an occasional slider, but pretty much all fastballs. But this year, he has in 45.1 innings, a 1.59 ERA. He's 4-0. Actually, the Dodgers beat him tonight, so he's 4-1. So that's nice. But he's really, one thing that stood out to me when I was looking at the numbers was he's really done a good job of limiting home runs. He's in the last 3 seasons, his home runs per 9 has only been 0.8, 0.9, and 1.0, which is really low considering he's a fastball pitcher and you know, this league, you know, the ball is really going. He is under contract for this season and one more at a very low 9.3 million. But one interesting thing that I saw was that in his contract, he gets a $100,000 bonus if he's traded to a West Coast team like the Dodgers or the Angels. So maybe he doesn't want that, or I don't know. But he gets, so if he is traded to Dodgers, they'll have to pay him an extra 100,000, which isn't too much, but just kind of interesting. So from what I see, you know, it's a year and a half of a 33-year-old, really solid pitcher. I was looking at maybe the Dodgers' 5th best prospect, Cody Hosey, a power hitting third baseman with a good eye, was drafted in the 2019 draft out of college, and maybe a player to be named later, a lower pitching level prospect that they'll have to trade after the season once the restrictions open up. But if they were to acquire Lance Lynn, it would make a pretty dominant playoff trio of Kershaw, Buehler, and Lynn. So that's my first one. I think
That's your first one?
really fun to see. I don't think it'll happen, but there rumors are that the Dodgers have called and checked in, so we will have to see.
All right. So that's a good first one. Now my first pick, this one's gonna hurt to see him go, but I think it has to happen. And Drelton Simmons. Now Simmons has ranked top 15 in the MVP voting 3 times throughout his career, twice with the Angels. He's a defensive wizard, probably one of the best defensive shortstops you've ever seen. However, his contract is up at the end of this year. And the Angels, again, are not going to be paying that hefty price tag. For those of you that don't remember, we acquired him in the Sean Newcomb trade. Newcomb now has finally made it to the majors with the Braves. And Simmons has kind of dropped off a little bit. While he still does have top defensive value, his OPS plus in 2019 was 79. Right now, granted, it's only 9 games, is 62. He hasn't really been able to stay on the field. He's been hurt consistently. And I think they're going to have to get rid of him. Now, I know that the Blue Jays were actually calling in on him to see what they need. Bo Bichette's been out for a couple more weeks. They want someone that is going to kind of secure that shortstop position. And if I am the Angels GM, I'm looking at 2 guys right now. One is the Blue Jays number 5 prospect, Alex Manoah. Alex is 22, and he is a starting pitcher at 6'6", 260 pounds, strong right-hander. Hopefully that could be someone you could pick up. Or someone else would be Adam Kloffenstein, the Blue Jays number 10 prospect, currently in single A. He's 20, another big guy, 6'5", 243 pounds. These guys will probably not be your number 1 starter down the line, but at least it's something right now to kind of give you hope for the future. Starting pitching has been a big question mark for the Angels ever since Jared Weaver and Irvin Santana kind of left that rotation back in the early 2000s. So Anderson Simmons has got to go. You can't hold on to him. It makes no sense. Quite frankly, I don't see if you're getting that big of a return on him right now, but you got to get something for him.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that's it's got to happen. There's no point in holding on to a defensive-minded shortstop for the last little bit of his contract. I don't think they'll get too much out of him, but you know, try to get
especially coming off. He's in his 30s now too, so it's getting that back edge.
Yeah. All right, that's a good one. So I'm gonna go into my second one, and this is my number 1. Would love to see on the Dodgers. He has been so good in the American League for the Royals, who have not been good in recent years. Whit Merrifield the second baseman, also plays the outfield. He, if acquired, would make the Dodgers lineup completely unfair. He had this season he's
Like it's
batting,
already not unfair.
yeah, pretty much. But this season he's batting 297 with 345 on base and a 500 slugging, good for a 126 OPS plus. He's got a lot of speed. He has a season where he stole 45 bases a couple years ago and led all of baseball. That speed, he doesn't use the speed too much for running anymore. As he's getting up there a little bit, doesn't steal too many bases, but a first to third guy can steal a couple bases, has 6 so far on the season, so definitely uses that speed. And just, I mean, he's such a Dodger guy. He's got versatility. He plays second and center, and both of those he plays pretty average, a little. He's a good second baseman and an average center fielder. He can even play a little left and right if that is what is needed. I think on the Dodgers, he would play second base against lefties and maybe move to center field versus righties. Yeah, so if you're looking at his contract, he's on a really cheap contract, which would mean the Royals might not be interested in trading him. He's got the rest of this season and a couple more seasons, plus a team option for 2023. So he's under control for a couple of years. But with Jock Peterson and Kike Hernandez both set to become free agents at the end of the year, you might be able to not re-sign some of those guys and let him take the spot as the utility and play everywhere kind of guy. The return, I think, for this would be a little higher given that contract. I was looking at Keibert Ruiz, a prospect I have loved for a long time, and maybe we'll do a special prospect show in the future if he stays a Dodger, because I would love to talk about him. Young catcher. He's the Dodgers' number 3 prospect. He had a cup of coffee in the majors, homered in his first ever career at bats. That's nice. So I was thinking maybe a package centered around him, as well as Omar Estevez, the shortstop, second baseman, speedy, good contact hitter, maybe some international bonus pool money. Would take a lot to get Whit Merrifield, but he is a good player who's torn up the American League, very consistent. Would be a huge addition to this Dodger lineup that doesn't really need a huge addition at the moment.
I mean, nice. I definitely think that Witt would help out the Dodgers, but do you see the Royals letting go of him?
I don't.
Because they're a team that has to build through homegrown talent versus free agent acquisitions.
Right. I only think that the reason I say they might trade is because there's not that many sellers, like we talked about, and a package centered around Keibert Ruiz, like a really solid catching prospect who the Dodgers would be willing to give up since they already have young catcher Will Smith. If you can get Keibert Ruiz and maybe another lower level prospect and some bonus money, maybe you're looking to trade him. I don't think this will happen. I don't think Dodgers are going to do any big moves they don't really need anything to move the needle. But if they were to swing for the fences, I think they could definitely put a package together that Kansas City would be very interested in.
Nice. So for my number 2 pick, I'm picking Brian Goodwin. Now the Angels picked up Brian Goodwin. He's been one of my fan favorites. He has some really cool cleats, tributes to Nipsey and Kobe Bryant that he likes to wear from time to time. The left-hander has been typically a pinch hitter with the Royals and Nationals before the Angels picked him up on a cheap 1-year deal. They've had 1-year deals with him back-to-back years. This year he's having a career year, batting 253, has an OPS of 826, OPS plus of 124. And the reason I'd say trade him is because you have Justin Upton for 2 more years. You have Joe Adele, who's now up in the majors. He had his first 2-run home run game today. You obviously have Mike Trout. You have more talent along the way with Brandon Marsh coming up. Jordan Adams, too, is being expected to come in 2 to 3 years. So you already have talent in the outfield coming up. He's 29, left-handed bat, solid offensive talent, and his deal is up. He's cheap right now at 1 year, $2.2 million. A team could definitely use him, and there have been inquiries. I think what you'd want to try to get for him is something similar to the deal for Tommy La Stella. They both had very similar tracks being picked up by the Angels 2 off seasons ago for cheap. Both had been pretty much pinch hitters their entire career before the Angels gave them full-time positions. They both paid off really well. And you're looking for someone like a Franklin Barreto, someone that might have been burnt out or that just doesn't have any more options, nowhere to go. And hopefully Billy Epler will take a chance on them. or you could try to package Goodwin with Simmons or someone like a Castro. I recognize that Castro is also someone the Angels could trade, but he was not on my top three. To just try to get some talent back. Again, you're probably not going to be getting that starter that a lot of fans covet or desperately want. You're probably going to be getting, if it is a starter, a minor league guy that a 5th round pick, a guy that's 7th or 8th on their top 10 prospects. But maybe you can see if Epler wants to package together, let's say a Goodwin and a Simmons or a Goodwin and a Castro to try to get a team to bite, because there's definitely need in the league for another outfield bat, especially the lefty bat.
An interesting one.
The lineup a little bit.
An interesting one that while you were talking that I thought of was Cleveland is really looking for an outfield, a couple outfielders. Their outfield has been horrendous, has not hit at all. Maybe a trade involving Brian Goodwin to the Indians, and if you maybe include some other stuff and could end up with one of their nice young starting pitchers.
I'm looking at
Clevenger, but they have a lot of starting pitching depth, and they've been really good at developing players. But they really have been looking for an outfielder. Feels like for a while. They haven't had a good outfield, but it maybe Brian Goodwin could be
help shore up that outfield a little bit.
Cleveland player, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I've got one more, and honestly, it was tough to think because Dodgers. I mean, normally I would like to think we need as much bullpen help as we can get, but with Kenley and Trainin being so good in the back end, Caleb Ferguson being really solid, and Brusdar Graterol, the young stud, throwing crazy fast pitches, I couldn't really think that we could add a major bullpen guy. So my last is a bit of a reach, a guy that has been rumored to be staying, although I think that it's silly for the Reds to keep him, is Trevor Bauer. He's such an interesting guy. He would be a true rental. He's a free agent at the end of this year. So he would only be traded to make 4 or 5 starts and then go on a playoff run. So that's for that reason, I don't think the Dodgers would want to give up too much for only a month and a half to 2 months of Bauer. But then again, they could maybe consider – he has said that he wants to be a Dodger, that he plans on being a Dodger at some point in his career. And he's also said that he only plans on signing 1-year deals after arbitration ends. So you might see him, if he does get traded, if they could say maybe you come and sign 1 more deal for next year. He is very analytical. The Dodgers are a very player development based organization, which maybe would allow him to continue to flourish as he's been so good this year. But he's just been so good. I think that the Reds are going to ask for so much, and the Dodgers aren't going to want to. No one's going to want to match that price for just a short amount of time. But if they were to add him, it would be pretty insane to have him, Clayton Kershaw, and Walker Buehler all in the same rotation. That would be incredible. But overall, at the end of the day, the Dodgers just called up Gavin Lux, their top prospect, the number 2 prospect in all of baseball. So as Dodger fans, I say we should just be happy with that. He could be a huge trade deadline acquisition, that type of player. He's had his some problems in the past, but the Dodgers are just so stacked that they don't really need to make any minor moves to really secure themselves. They're just in a really good place. So let's just enjoy the wave and see where it takes us.
Yeah, exactly. The Dodgers are comfortable. I have to say, with Trevor Bauer coming out saying that he really wants to sign 1-year deals to try to make more money in the long run, that kind of hurts the Reds' value or any team that would have him in this position, because I think a lot of opposing teams are going to argue that they don't want to give up a ton of prospects for a guy that they know is not going to be with them for the long run.
Yeah.
But right now in the playoffs, you're looking at 3-game sets in the first round. Having pitching is beyond important because you got to get solid performances. Trevor Bauer has had a pretty good playoff record with the Indians back when they were in contention a few years ago.
Minus the drone incident, of course.
Minus that one, yes. Minus throwing the ball also over the wall.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
He's quite the character, and if the Dodgers pick him up, that'll just be another arm in the rotation. you could probably withstand anything at that point, you know?
I do
Um,
see the Dodgers. I think that he will be a Dodger next season.
I could totally see that happening though too, because I remember when Bryce Harper was a free agent, the Dodgers offered him like what 5 years, 200 million, or like something
They
ridiculous.
offered him 3 years for 45 million a year. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was crazy.
So the Dodgers have the money to spend like 1 year 300 or 1 year 30 million or 1 year
I think,
25 million.
yeah, I really think that he'll sign for 1
That
year.
seems like a home for the Dodgers. Someone that's so analytical, he'd fit in with the culture there
Yeah,
very nicely.
but I don't think they'll trade for him. So might be a moot point.
My final guy is my favorite player this season. I drafted him in my fantasy baseball league. Everybody thought it was a joke. I said he'd be the AL Cy Young. Dylan Bundy has been coming out on fire. And when I say on fire, it's been incredible. He is an ERA plus this year of 173. He has pitched 6 games, 1 complete game, 38 innings, 26 hits, only allowed a total of 11 runs, and only walked 8 guys, 44 strikeouts. Incredible. His strikeout to walk ratio is 5.5, which is a career high by
Good.
almost 2. Yeah, 2. He's been a guy known, initially picked 4th overall way back when, had some injuries. The Orioles kind of, I don't want to say gave up on him, but the Angels got him for pretty cheap, giving up 4 nobody's this past offseason. And he's been incredible. Just to give you a stat line, he's pitched against Seattle, 9 innings, 10 strikeouts, 4 hits. Against Oakland, 7 innings, 4 hits. Against Oakland again, he pitched 5 2/3, giving up 7 hits, 2 runs. So he's been very consistent. And wow, yeah. So someone that the Angels could rely on for his pitching. I know they got him. They wanted a reliable arm this year, considering how much Tommy John surgeries they've had. I think that the initial thought would be to not trade away your best starter, considering they lack pitching so much.
Especially when there's such a big drop off.
Yeah.
He's their only
He's like
solid starter.
Because Otani's been hurt again, couldn't find the strike zone. Tehran has forgotten how to pitch altogether. Sandoval got optioned to Long Beach recently. So really you have Heaney, Canning, and Bundy, with Bundy being the outlier there. But I think you have to trade him. I don't see a time in his life where his value is going to be any higher. I don't see him consistently putting up an ERA of 2.6 every season. I know in Baltimore it was more of a hitter's park, so he's more reliable to give up home runs. Maybe something's just clicked in Anaheim. It's only been 6 starts so far, but he's been pretty dang good in those 6 starts. And I think any team, especially this year, they're going to want that pitcher. He could easily fit in on most rotations right now as a number 2 or number 3. Let's say in the first round of the playoffs, come in, get you game 3 or get you a game 2, so that takes some pressure off. So I don't know what you're going to get from Bundy. I'm kind of hesitant to trade him just because, almost like a stock right now, you're kind of at that breaking point of like, do we keep him and see if he's consistent, or if he kind of drops off and you just want to sell high. But what do you think, Derek?
I think, just thinking about the Angels, my personal the way I'm feeling is I don't think they'll trade him. I think they probably should trade him. He's got another year of control next year, or else they absolutely would trade him. Mm-hmm. But he's got I think 1 more year of control. They might think maybe we can sign this guy to an extension. He still hasn't turned 28 yet, so maybe he's got a couple more useful years in him. Mm-hmm. I just think with the Angels are going to want to, if they trade him, like, what is keeping Trout from opting out? I mean, they just would have no way to stay in any games. So I really think that ownership is not going to want to trade him, even though they probably should.
Like, I'm the biggest diehard Trout fan, and this may be something crazy to say, but I really don't think it'd be the end of the world if he left the team. Because I think ever since 2014, when Trout truly emerged as like that all-time great, the Angels every single year have been trying to rush together to put together a championship team.
Well, I don't think that's
the process.
You can't put that on him.
I know it's not
This is
but
you. This
it's
is
the
you.
way
This
the
is
general managers are handling it. Now he's 29. The Angels are in no better place than they were in 2014 as term as like of a long-term project.
you can't get. Don't get too. It's.
I'm just
This is
saying.
just. This
Think
is
about
just
it.
the moment thinking. This is not.
This
You're
is
definitely not
Derek,
better off
they
without.
haven't made the playoffs. They have not won a playoff game since 2009.
If there was a time, to trade, that time has passed.
Oh,
That's you're being
they're not
crazy.
trading him. Okay, one, you can never trade him, but I think they've tried to rush the process more than
Oh,
anything.
absolutely.
Trying to like every year, like, all right, we're just gonna put together a championship contender instead of being like, all right, we're not gonna contend this year. Let's take it patient.
They've signed $600 million contracts, six separate $100 million contracts.
Josh
That is
Hamilton, Albert Pujols, Justin Upton,
Mike
all
Trout.
of them punked.
Yeah, I mean and only one of those guys has deserved it. So,
yeah. And we'll see how Anthony Rendon pans out. He's doing good right now, but I don't know if he's going to be 36. We'll see.
yeah,
But I just think it's such a rush that they're trading away a lot of top talent to try to secure that lineup to get Trout bringing. I think that's just pressure from the baseball world.
Yeah.
But you've seen guys like back in, I believe it was 2012 or 13, they traded for Zach Greinke. They gave up Gene Segura for that at the time, who was with their top prospect. And you've seen them trade away a lot of their prospects for talent that's major league ready. That's resulted in them having one of the worst farm systems this entire decade. And now they're finally getting a little better, but they're like 20th, 21st right now.
It just seems like they've done, and maybe this is something for another podcast. It seems like they're not following the modern approach for a rebuild. So
they don't have a set structure. That's
But you know what? That is a discussion for another episode coming soon.
Now.
Today is the trade deadline, or not today. Today is the trade deadline episode. Monday is the trade deadline at 1:00 Pacific time. We will be eager to see what is going to happen. Maybe we will record a podcast directly after that, talk about if anything happened in the LA sports world, and see what's going on. But
so
until
far,
then,
there's only been 2 moves, I'm pretty sure. Trevor Rosenthal and Tommy La Stella.
yeah, there's also the Taiwan Walker trade from
the
Seattle.
Taiwan Walker, yeah. That's
and also Gerard Dyson from Pirates to the White Sox, a defensive replacement and pinch runner. So
White Sox have an athletic outfield now.
Yeah, they can have a really good defensive outfield with Adam Engel and Luis Roberts. So we will bring you the news on what happens at the deadline, if the Dodgers stand pat, if the Angels are able to acquire some young talent for some aging veterans. Until then, this has been the LA Hoops and Homers podcast. Thank you for listening. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, all those places at LA Hoops and Homers. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening.